Good, okay, when that happens.
Okay, call the meeting to order here. It's 9:30. Start off just before we get going on the agenda. We have a couple announcements we'd like to make. First one, I would like to start off by saying, I guess, Wilma has been with this organization for 22 years and is retiring here next month. So I've heard lots about how you've been able to just tame unruly customers, have been able to just kind of walk in with your grace and smile, and it's going to be, I guess, your ability to help staff and ratepayers and everything you've done for this municipality is going to be greatly missed. So thank you very much for everything you've done. I don't think we can express our gratitude enough for your 22 years. That's a long time with the organization. Thank you very much, Wilma.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Reeve, Wilma, we've only had the privilege of working together for a few months, and Reeve has covered it extremely well, but you're that very calm demeanor, and all of the areas that you look after are very well taken care of. I know Jeff was very concerned about getting someone in for your replacement so you could convey some of that excellent knowledge that you have to your replacement, and you very much have that great calm demeanor and just a tremendous way of interacting with everybody. So I know everybody really enjoys working with you.
Thank you. Well, it's been great working here all those years. I've met a lot of very good people to work with. It's easy to come to work when you enjoy your job. So when you like your job, it doesn't really feel like a job. It just feels like you're doing something fun and doing something that you want to work toward. So it was great to work with all council, so many different faces in council too that I've seen in past years, and so many different ones in our office. I know when I first started in the office, I think there was like 9 or 10 people that just worked in the office, and now I think we're up to 25. So there's quite a big expansion there. But yeah, it's really interesting to work with new people, and everybody here kind of works together and they back each other up, and it's just a really good atmosphere. So it's been a pleasure working here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Benedetto, if you would like to make the
Well,
second announcement, please.
Yeah, I'm very pleased to have the opportunity this morning to introduce Tracy Minnis as our new EA to the CAO, and of course will be very involved in supporting you with calendar invites and other work with council. And Tracy brings to us an absolute wealth of municipal experience. She has dedicated most of her career to municipal work, including her educational background. So we are very, very fortunate to have Tracy joining us, and she'll make tremendous contributions to the organization.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess we'll do a quick round of introductions just around the room here. If you wouldn't mind, Councillor Prestige starting us off.
Bruce Prestige, Councillor for Blue Ridge.
I'm John Burrows, Councillor for Whitecourt West.
Dave Cush, I'm the Councillor for Anselmo and the Reeve.
Jeremy Wilhelm, Whitecourt East.
Alan Dean, Whitecourt Central.
And can't see him online there, but Councillor Williams.
Hi, Devin Williams, Councillor for Fort Assiniboine, Timu.
And Councillor Coogan might be joining us online later. So thank you very much, and it's great to have you on board here, and hopefully we don't scare you away too soon.
Thank you.
With that, I'll start with the adoption of the agenda. Any extra items from council? Anything from administration?
No changes, Mr. Reeve.
Okay. Councillor Wilhelm?
A motion to the council adopts the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried.
In favor.
Thank you. Adoption of the minutes. We have 2 there. Budget discussion for December 4th. Councillor Dean?
I move that council adopt budget discussions from December 4th, 2024.
Thank you, Councillor. Call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
That one's carried. And budget discussion for December 5th, 2024. Councillor Wilhelm?
I'll motion that council adopts the budget discussion minutes from December 5th, 2024.
Thank you. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. I know
In
we're
favor.
a couple minutes on our delegations, but they are here and ready to go if we would like to start with Sergeant Happ. Are not ready yet? Oh, wait, sorry. Is this Whitecourt Sergeant Clarke?
Yes.
Okay. We have two different delegations. We're early in one, they're not here yet, so if you guys are ready, we can, instead of keeping you waiting for a bunch, we'll get you started. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, thank you for having us. I'm Matthew Clarke. I'm the Staff Sergeant in charge of Whitecourt Detachment. This is our new Operations Sergeant, Craig Park, and Tina Verdaniuk is our Crime Prevention Coordinator. So we just wanted to speak with you about a few of the questions you had about our newest addition would be our body-worn cameras. So January, we'll be being trained and deploying the cameras. Every frontline member will have a camera. And then cost-wise, I know there were some questions about that. Originally, it was planned to be $3,000 per member, but they've since then reduced the rate. It's projected to be $1,640, but it could change at year end. That'd be our fiscal year end. So for the 3 cameras for the woodland enhanced positions, the calculation works out to approximately $2,952 for all 3 members to be fully equipped. The cameras are used daily, they're downloaded daily. There's a subscription service is how we manage all the data. And the addition of these is going to be great for the unit and the members because it's going to help with public perception and also dealing with the public, and it will help us do investigations with the members and with the public. So everybody is looking forward to it, the members and I believe the public. We are in the midst of doing public information sessions. So there'll be posters coming out. As the members are coming out with the cameras, they'll have business cards, which they can show to anyone or give to anyone. It has a QR code on it, which goes to a national website, so they can see any questions they have about it. It's all national. It'll be all Canada-wide. So yeah, we've got the posters ready, the cards ready. We'll be going to the schools, we'll be going to local establishments, local businesses, and providing all the information. Training is 4 hours, split over 2 days, and then should be fully operational. We've got everything set up at the office for everything to be fully operational. So that's the main part of body worn cameras.
Okay. Any questions from council on the body-worn cameras? I do have one question in regards to the costing of the 20. Is that direct billed through, like, from the RCMP to the municipality, or is that going to be through the police?
It's indirect
Okay.
billing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think the other question was brought up was maybe staffing.
Yeah.
So detachment wise, we have 3 hard vacancies right now, which means there's positions empty, just with transfers. But we do have 3 people identified, so they hopefully should be here by spring. So that will fill our 2 general duty spots and our GIS spot. So we do have 1 member off duty sick, so but that's being covered through internal processes. So I would say hopefully late May we should be fully staffed.
In regards to staffing, how much? I know that we have the 3 enhanced positions for the rural to go around. How much time do they spend for presence within the county, within the municipality?
So there's the 3 woodlands enhanced, and then we also have 4 rural positions under the provincial collator. So time-wise, it's usually to be reactive to comments And then we also do proactive patrols. We've been focusing on Blue Ridge and then all the secondary highways. And we also have our independent traffic unit, which is also patrolling those highways. We don't have a specific patrol pattern, but we do patrol the full area, and we try and do as much proactive. A lot of it is just reactive and attending to the calls in the county. So, but just for number wise, like we had so far this year from January 1st, we've had 5,347 occurrences. 1,208 have been in the rural area. So, there's not as many for sure, but enough to keep us busy. And we don't split up the detachment into municipal, rural, county. Like we all do the same thing. We all manage everything, even GIS. Their two big files this year with the drug trafficking was all people that ended up living in the county, and so those are both successful investigations. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Councillor Prestige?
Through the chair to Staff Sergeant Clarke. I just want to thank you for the extra patrols in Blue Ridge. It has made a difference. My calls are pretty much nil now. So, good work.
Thank you. Yeah, and appreciate you guys reaching out to us and keeping us, apprised of what's going on, and that lets us know what we need to focus on. So appreciate it.
I just need your personal cell number.
Come see me after.
Yeah.
Councillor Burrows?
Yeah, and I wanted to expand on that vacancy idea a little bit, and maybe, do you know why we're asking that question? And maybe that's what we need to explain is, under the new police funding model, they basically have X number of positions funded, and we get a bill as a municipality for those X number of positions. Those positions may or may not be staffed, is our problem. So if you liken this to a cable channel, you're paying for HBO, but you don't get access to the channel because it's down. So we're trying to figure out, how do we get the information from the RCMP on the positions that are staffed and go back and figure out that what we're actually being charged for is what we're getting. And I don't know if anyone actually explained that to you. So it's not that we're trying to get all up in the RCMP's business or anything on the staffing levels. We're just trying to figure out if we're getting what we are being charged for.
Okay.
So if that helps at all, maybe that helps. I don't know.
Yeah, the three positions specific to Woodlands County Enhanced are all three. They're fully staffed. Not to say that they won't, like if a member moves out, then that position would remain and need to be filled. At this current point, all those three positions are filled. Fully operational members.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions for the RCMP?
I do have a quick presentation just on crime prevention.
Sure.
If you don't mind, I just brought a slideshow just to show you what our, being that the officers are very engaged in the community and that piece that we feel are also Woodlands County residents within the schools and stuff. I wanted to just showcase a little bit of what our plan is for 2025. So I know it's really small, but this is just kind of me forecasting where I have to be, what I have to be doing. Of course, there's lots of things that come up when within the RCMP. I'm very engaged in just the files and what's going on. So we had, counterfeit stuff going on in the last few weeks. So it's like, how do I get a project going and moving that we're informing the community of what's going on? Some of the programming that we do is our risk program for our grade 9 students, and we've done this even through COVID, which was fantastic. No, not one kid missed it. So we take just partnerships between the Whitecourt RCMP, our integrated traffic unit, fire and ambulance, and our local nurse staff as well. So we do a full mock scenario for our grade 9 students that basically shows a day in the life of a bad choice. So it's something that we feel is very effective, and our grade 9s are very receptive to the fact that their poor choices do affect others as well. So we have a panel discussion at the end, and the RCMP and the firefighters are very candid about how that mental health piece, when you're, I'm just going to be very frank, scraping people off the road or telling somebody that their loved one has died, it affects them. So very powerful program that we do in our community. As far as in the schools, we do bike rodeos, we have Halloween safety talks, and we make sure our, just the bike rodeos with the grade 2 students, everyone brings their bike to school. We show them the rules of the road. They have a helmet fitting. They make sure everything's good to go, and learn how to, it's actually quite cute because they learn how to ride their bike properly. Okay. There we go. Oh, see there. It wasn't slow.
It's a bit of lag.
Yeah, a bit of a lag. Is that it? Yeah. Okay, park parties. So this is a program that we have, and of course, I'm a town of Whitecourt employee, but I also work with the RCMP in both areas. We are planning on doing a park party, hopefully in the county soon. This is something that our undersubscribed, one of our grants for our community was our block party program. And we thought, okay, well, if they're not gonna do it, we are. So we started doing these little pop-up parties in locations in their community, bringing people out of their homes and getting, to know their neighbors a little bit. When it comes to crime prevention, it's an important piece of knowing your neighbors, knowing who they are, and making sure that you know each other for when you leave and go away on holidays and stuff like that. Partnerships with Rotary and Pembina Pipeline to sponsor the food for that, and we just do little pop-up parties. The community engagement piece, we get lots of asks throughout the year to come and join them, whether it's volleyball, Red Surge Duty, Pink Shirt Day, provincials in the schools, and we used to do a candy cane check stop, which we're trying to navigate a little bit of policy stuff to bring that back to the community, but we've done those in the past, so that's. I've sat on the power group for 16 years as the chair, and we do projects that are kind of up and coming in the community. We have stakeholders that get together. Elephant in the Room is one of them, which we came and presented a while back to community services. And I think you guys have little elephants floating around here in your little area too. So we're also doing a poverty simulator for our grade 9 through 12 in the school at St. Joe's. And that's gonna just teach our youth a little bit about money management, a little bit about time management, and they'll basically get information on how much you make if you get your GED versus master's in something. So just kind of a teachable moment for them. Another thing that we do is our safe plans for our schools. We make sure that we're ready to go if worst case scenario happens. We have a database on our RCMP website that has maps, everything for the schools, so these guys can pull up everything and anything. They have pictures of the, mechanical rooms. We have stuff all ready to go, and we just make sure they're updated yearly. Of course, the new school that comes to town, we have to do the whole safe plan for the school, so we're up on that, and we make sure that those worst case scenarios are planned for. A lot of the social media stuff that we've been doing, the community spectrum, we put ads in there, that's just a sample. Our rave, which I think we're close to 800 people on our raves, which is kind of like you guys use Bark here. The RCMP are now using raves, so we can go right from the RCMP detachment if we want to fan out stuff to community, same sort of system, you sign up for it. And we can put some information. It's like rant and rave, only the RCMP has a little different information. And then our press releases that you guys have been sharing on your social media pages, I make sure you guys get those as well. And finally, if this works. It's just gonna spin through. I just have a list of community ask, there we go, community safety presentations that we do throughout the year that we make sure if there's a forensic grade 9 class or grade 6 class, if we can, have the manpower to go and help present, we will. Sextortion, there is so many different presentations that we have canned that we can get the officers to present to schools or community groups that we've been asked. So this is something that when you talk about what's your money paying for, this kind of stuff. Also, these members are very active in the community, whether it's playing volleyball or presenting to any, whether it's the library or other, it's not necessarily youth. We did come to Blue Ridge and presented to the seniors on the 4th of December, I think it was. And that's an adorable group in Blue Ridge, just so you know. So that's all I wanted to just come and share with you guys, that the good work that these guys are doing in the community.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Tina? Not seeing any. Thank you guys very much for your presentation and for your time today. We obviously wouldn't be able to do or keep the individuals in our areas safe without your help. So you having the support, I guess the support from the RCMP and the communications that we seem to have, I guess, openly back and forth is very much appreciated. So again, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, and just to reiterate that as well, if you could definitely reach out to us. We're not here just for the bad stuff. If you got stuff you want us to do for events, like, we're definitely more than willing, and any community ideas you have, definitely let us know. If you have more questions about any of the other stuff, I can definitely find out for you.
Okay. And thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
With that, if I can get a motion on the.
No, that's fine. No, just the motion to accept it, you're on it.
Yeah, just a motion to accept for information. Councilor Burrows?
I'll make a motion that the presentation is accepted for information.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? That one's carried.
In favor.
And I guess we can move into our next delegation. Sergeant Hack?
You bet, yeah. I'm Barrhead Detachment Commander. Got there in August. Pulled father this morning actually for Woodlands County. That's a small part that we have in Fort Assiniboine there that covers the county. And so far for the quarters, we've got 113 files in kind of Fort Assiniboine area. Our copper thefts and oil field thefts, we have 2 files there. So that's dropped down for us compared to last year at this time. So that's a good sign. I'm not sure if the members talked to you guys about anything that's going on in the RCMP as far as advancements and stuff like that, but our talk is in place now, Real-Time Operations Center. If you guys are aware of that or not, yes or no. But what it is, we have 2 officers working in telecoms now. They have their own dispatcher, their own analyst, and when a file comes in, they need resources for, our talk can rally resources in the communities and other areas to bring resources to us. Especially just last week, in a stolen vehicle at Whitecourt here, came through Marythorpe, headed to Fort Assiniboine. Our talk got on the phone with me. I head up to Fort Assiniboine, got spiked already. We were able to spike that vehicle covertly. I had no idea we were there. His tires go flat, and we got him in custody. So we don't share a channel, at least with our talk, monitoring these high-risk calls. They can get resources in place for us a lot faster than us switching to a different call or a different radio channel, get resources available to come help us out. So they have PDS, police dog services, on their way in case the guys did flee, but the guys won't get out to the vehicles. They're taken into custody. So that's in place now. So our talk, when an NCO isn't working, so night shifts, a lot of times Sergeant or Corporal isn't on duty, our talk as a sergeant and staff sergeant working, they'll take over the call and bring resources and make decisions as far as what resources come out and what can be used. So a big help for junior officers that are kind of new to the areas and new to policing. As a resource for them, they're not left alone, especially in Barrhead. There's 1 or 2 people working at night. They're not on their own out there in say Fort Assiniboine and looking for answers. So that's a resource that they have in place. Whitecourt is where Barrhead be getting the body-worn cameras here pretty soon. So they give us a date for Barrhead end of March to roll out for us. So looking forward to that. Our public complaints do tie us down a ton, even if they're frivolous. We still investigate them. With the body-worn cameras, it should alleviate a lot of that and expedite when the officers have the footage and the audio on the person now. So that'll be mandatory coming forward here in the new year. Barrhead, we're 2 members short right now. One's on pat leave. The other one is a long-term ODS. So 2 kind of soft vacancies for us right now. Other than that, we're full staff, so that's good news. A new detachment's getting built in Barrhead. It's supposed to break ground here hopefully once the ground thaws out in springtime. Fingers crossed. It is the first project for K Division to build here in 2025. So I've been told that it will not get bumped, but we'll see. Right now, the last quote came in for was $9.4 million. So yeah, hefty bill for a detachment that size. But, yeah, so that's getting built up. What else is on the go there? That's the biggest thing, I guess, guys, right now. If you guys have any questions for me or anything, by all means, the floor is yours to bounce some questions off of.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from council? No? Definitely nice to see that you guys are getting a new detachment up there.
Yeah, it's long overdue there for sure. That one's been aged for a while. So I think there's 6 detachments get built in Alberta in the next 5 years. And they say we're number 1 to get built. So I know Tollfields needs a new one now that it got firebombed here 2 weeks ago. Someone threw some Molotov cocktails to the front door and burned the front vestibule and stuff on it. So it wasn't scheduled for a new office for another 2 or 3 years, but it's going to bump up the list. But I've been told it's not going to bump Barrhead. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, stolen vehicles is still a huge problem. We have a ton of stolen vehicles coming out of Edmonton and Warrenville and up in Barrhead. Yeah, so far, Port Assiniboine area, Woodlands, only had 2 in the past 2 quarters. So, which is good news for the oil field, because they were hit just, I was in Grand Prairie before this, and man, the stolen vehicles there was just rampant. It was just out of control there. So, compared to that, this is definitely a breath of fresh air for what they're going through there.
Not sure if you can tell, historically to now have copper thefts gone down in that area?
They have in our area, yeah, they have. I don't know if it's just guys being more diligent and keep an eye on suspect vehicles that come into the area now and phoning us or chasing them away. There's a small group there in Fort Assiniboine that we won't call them vigilantes, but they're very switched on individuals that do not wait for police sometimes. So we'll call them deterrent for sure. So they've usually curbed some of the curiosity these criminals have by going into dark sites and stuff like that. These guys have no problem going in there and chasing them out. So a very helpful bunch up there as far as containment goes and identifying, who a piece of shit might be in the community. They plan them up pretty quick there to us. So it is helpful. Got to remind them that they can't take things in their own hands sometimes and use violence, but they're a good group up there. They mean well, so just got to rein them in a bit. So it's definitely helped.
Any other questions, comments from council here? Not seeing any. I guess thank you for your time, for coming down here, and thank you guys also for all of the calls and the service you provide for the area.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to speak, I was in Barrhead actually. My first post was Barrhead back in 2005. So I did 7 years there, went to dog section after that. I was in PDS, I was in charge of the program in 2012, or 2017 to 2022. So I'm very familiar with Barrhead and some of the services out there. So crime has definitely dropped down compared to 2005 to 2012 when I was in Barrhead. So which is a good sign. But yeah, thanks to you guys, everything you guys do.
No, I just looking at our recommendation here, we're also talking about confirming the priorities for the area. I think currently our priorities are still around, I guess, re-educating and visibility, and I don't know if we need to be steering away from that currently. It seems to be working, or are there any other conversation from council on that? I think our priorities have been set and kind of working through this term. Councilor Burrows?
If there's no further discussion on it, I'll just go ahead and make the motion that council accepts the Barrhead RCMP detachment update and confirms the priority issues for the AA.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
And that's carried. Again, thank you very much for your time and for.
Thank you. We do a coffee with the cops tomorrow in Barrhead. Then our next one will be up in Fort Assiniboine. Will be in the new year. We're doing a coffee with the cops by the coffee shop there up in Main Street, Fort Assiniboine. So that'll be our next one for the Woodlands County area for the Barrhead detachment.
Awesome.
Awesome.
All right, thank you very much. You can say,
You bet. Thank you.
Merry Christmas,
Same to you.
staff members, of course. Okay, our 10:30 delegation's getting moved back to, I think it was 11:30 today, just due to their timing. So we'll move on to 5.1, the elections bylaw.
Mr. Reeve and members of council, the province through Bill 20 had introduced a significant series of amendments to the Local Authorities Election Act. And before I go through the details here, I certainly want to acknowledge Dawn and Jennifer from our Ford office due to an absence. They dug into this issue to look at the steps that are required to be taken prior to the new year, and greatly appreciate their assistance to do that. So one of the significant changes in the amendments are that individuals can submit their nominations earlier now, and they can submit nominations effective January 1st, 2025, and for us, it's January 2nd because we're not open for business on the 1st. So we need to put these in place so that the returning officers are appointed and they would be in a position to accept nominations if somebody wanted to file a nomination at that earlier date. The other issues to be addressed are appointment of returning and substitute officer, location where nominations may be received, the process for withdrawal of nominations if we had the unfortunate death of a candidate, and the ability to establish voting stations, advanced voting procedures, and special ballot processes. So those, to satisfy the requirements of the Local Authorities Election Act, those have been addressed in bylaw number 6/2024, the elections bylaw. And given that some of these requirements have to be in place for January 1st, we are asking council support to pass 4 motions today, including the third extra one, which would be introducing it for consideration and then third and final reading. So we'll try to answer between myself and Jennifer any questions that you have, and we would appreciate your support of all the readings today.
Thank you, Mr. Benedetto. Any questions, comments from council? It's pretty straightforward. Councillor Prestige.
I'll make a motion the council give first reading to bylaw 6/2024, elections bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
That one's passed. Just want to move motion to Councillor Burrows.
I'll move that council give second reading to bylaw 620-24 election bylaw.
Thank you. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
Councillor Wilhelm.
A motion that council proceed to third and final reading of bylaw 6/2024 elections bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor. Call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
And motion 4. Councillor Dean.
Move that council give third and final reading to bylaw 6/2024 elections bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor. Call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
And that one's carried. Councillor Rose.
One question on this. Does this replace bylaws 560-20?
Yes, it will.
So we need to make a motion to rescind bylaw 560-20 /20?
In the bylaw 620,
It
it
does say
mentions
that.
that 560.
Oh, it's automatic in the, you don't need a rescinding motion on a bylaw?
Not if it's in the bylaw.
Yeah, it's covered off in the bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
But thank you for raising that because we definitely need it covered off, and it is, so.
Okay, moving on. Old business sidewalk, snow removal, and ice control in Hamlets, 8.1.
Mr. Riva, we've got Jeff online, so I'd ask him if he'd like to speak to this important conversation and our efforts to look at some accommodations of some safety improvements. So with that, I'll let Jeff speak to it.
Good morning, Your Worship and members of council. Season's greetings. During the December 4th council meeting, council has directed administration to continue with the practice of snow removal and ice control services on the Hamlet sidewalks. The current bylaw 520/19 will be reviewed and changes proposed at a later governance and priorities committee meeting in the new year. County forces will continue to perform the snow removal ice control activities. However, we have some safety issues to county staff and pedestrians that need to be upheld as well. Today with me, I believe Beverly County's Health and Safety Coordinator is in attendance to help me answer any safety-related questions. But in reviewing the Occupational Health and Safety Act, there are two sections that we noted. Number one, employer and supervisors have an obligation to take all precautions necessary to protect the health and safety of every worker. And secondly, if an existing or potential hazard to workers is identified, employers must take measures to eliminate or control the hazard. In this scenario, while the hazard can be expected, the degree of injury from the hazard cannot be determined by the operator, as the operator has no way to assess whether the right cord is used, whether the right plug is used, or either it's in good operating condition. Additionally, a cord covered by snow also creates greater risk to our staff because it hides the hazard. And in this scenario, the best hazard control is to prohibit residents from leaving their cords across sidewalks. Staff have considered a number of other options, such as setting up a sign in the hamlet to ask residents to remove their vehicles prior to snow removal and ice control activities. However, this practice will delay snow removal ice control activities by at least 24 hours, or in case if there's a Friday and weekend, there may be further delays. The extension cords across the sidewalk, it's not just a hazard to employees of the county when they're working, but also other pedestrians using the sidewalk. The county staff is, as I mentioned before, we're working on the bylaw. However, currently we do not have any bylaw prohibiting the use of extension cords. Therefore, as a interim step, we thought about the idea just providing a letter, hand-delivered letter to all the residents in the hamlets. There's about 400 residents to just advise them not to have extension cords and the hazards that it presents for our staff as well as pedestrians. And the letter itself it's a draft. It's attached to the RFD. We are open to any suggestions and comments and any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sang. Any questions, comments from council? Not seeing any. I do agree that it is a service level that we've been offering, and we do want to continue it, but we also have to make sure that our staff that are doing it and the equipment is also safeguarded too. So we also had this discussion that we don't have the policy and that will have to come back. So I do feel that this is a fair option right now to at least start the process. Councillor Williams?
I just was gonna say, I think I'm trying to find where it is in here. I read it earlier, but that if there was a cord, there would be no snow removal there. I think that's a pretty good idea. If you see one, just lift up and their whole property kind of doesn't get done. And when they ask the questions of why, that's a really good time to educate them on it. So I like that was included in there.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Not seeing any. If somebody wants to make a motion. Councillor Dean?
I'll move that council directs administration to provide the attached letter to residents of Blue Ridge and Fort Assiniboine.
Thank you, Councillor. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
And that's carried. 8.2, operating and capital budgets.
Mr. Reeve and members of council, Denisha she just joined us live, is here to start to address the wrap-up of this important budgetary process we've been going through.
Morning, Denisha.
Good morning, councillors. Hiya. So before you, council has the updated budget information based on our last discussion at our November 4th and November 5th meeting, where council directed administration to use a 4.5% rate for assessment based on the current levels that we had, and adapted the option to do the 2-year phase of the staffing for the positions. And so we went back and we worked those numbers into the budget to present council the updated budget. So the highlighted for the summaries, the fuel that we had highlighted was removed for 100,000. Contract services for the airport was removed for 100,000. With the reduction in the municipal tax, that was 405,000. The initiative costs, go ahead.
Councillor Dean?
Just curious, how did you determine that municipal property tax decreased by 405,000?
Oh, so when we initially presented the numbers, it had a 6%, and so when we have that in a spreadsheet of all how we used to calculate the assessments and taxes. So we changed the rate, and so it changed. It's just a difference there.
Thank you.
And the new initiative was reduced approximately 500,000. And we increased transfers to capital reserve of to 67K. So whatever gain had achieved with the extra 0.5 that was given, because we had presented the 2-year phase with a 4%, we did not spend that in expenses. We use that as an additional transfer to capital. So as much as we could increase our transfer to capital, we did. So in the initial budget, we had about $500,000, and right now we have about 800, just right under 800. That is being transferred to reserve. And so on our page 3 or page 360, we have the highlighted of the changes that we have. The capital budget information has not changed, and I updated the page 5 with the differences there, and so and on page 7 or page 364, council has what the updated numbers look like, and I'll quickly do a summary. So we are estimating $3.5 million in total revenue. Operating expenses, we are estimating $31.8 million roughly. All things being equal, we are estimating that we'll have a revenue over expenses of $3.8 million roughly. From that, we allowed for $500,000 in doubtful accounts, and the asset retirement obligations, we allowed $380,000. So that brings down the deficit to the surplus over the from the revenue side of approximately $3 million. And from there, we have several transfers that are occurring, and so we have a transfer to capital reserve of the 771, and that the transfer to current year capital of the $3.1 million or $3.2 million. And we have a few transfer from reserve of funds that went into reserve to come back out to fund projects. So it's not using additional funding. So that's a quick summary there. And going through the overall county, you can see the category description of where the overall is. If we go back to our page 7 or 364, council can see the high-level departments that are having the costs. So can see transportation services is approximately 8.9. Airport is approximately $1 million. Agriculture is approximately 700,000. And the list goes down in compare, and that's comparing to the 2024 budget, and you have the 2023 actuals, and the year-to-date information is year-to-date to the first week of December. And so I could take any questions council might have or any comments, and if there are any, and we could be.
Thank you, Tanisha. Councillor Dean?
So I note that the factor of increased revenues was 4.98.
Right, so when we compare, through the Councillor Dean, yes, when we compare to the actuals, and that is triggered by the increase in assessment that we received from that tax holiday. So that increased that side of it because we didn't have that last year, so it created that extra over the actual because of that.
And if I recall, the motion coming out of that December 5th meeting was to ask you to work with a 4.9, I think it was 4.92.
Yeah, so it was a 4.5 to generate an X%, and that came out to 4.92 on the schedules that we had. Yes. However, we try to keep the assessment that we're using updated. So we make sure we update it as there's any 305 changes. And so with those 305 changes, there were some changes in some amounts. So the budget reflects the last change that we had.
And it reflects 4.5.
And it reflects the 4.5.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for Tanisha? Not seeing any. If we want to do a motion, Councillor Wilhelm?
A motion the council approves the 2025 interim operating and capital budget as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
Motion 2, Councillor Prestige.
Make a motion that council directs administration to proceed with the planning and execution on the 2025 capital projects.
Thank you, Councillor. Any discussion on that motion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. And then we have
In favor.
a motion attached to this. Councillor Dean?
So I'm going to make a motion, and I'm going to speak to the motion, or would you like me to ask my question?
If you'd like, you can ask your question first.
Okay. So new initiatives, reading through what the plan was, so there's a listing of prioritized staffing positions.
Yes.
And supporting information to that was that if any of those staffing positions were unable to be filled, then administration would look to fill something that was further down the prioritized list.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So getting that confirmation, I'd move that council directs administration to proceed with operational projects and initiatives, including the 2025 new initiative hires.
Thank you, Councillor. Any discussion on that motion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
And that is passed.
Mr. Reeve, if I could.
Councillor Bennett.
I'd like to thank council for your diligent work of going through this budget. It's a budget that reflects the true cost of providing the services and programs, and I know that has been different than where you've been the last few years because of the fiscal recovery. So we thank you very much for your diligent considerations. I'd also like to thank my administrative colleagues. They put an awful lot of work into this budget, looking at the actual costs of services and programs and looking at the capital and how that could be prioritized, and that took an awful lot of work. So I'd like to thank them as well. Overall, this is a very good budget for the community, building on the earlier phase of putting cash back in the bank and funding reserves. But the focus on this budget is on continued focus on rebuilding our roads and major rebuilds in our utility systems, and we appreciate your support of supporting and changing the organizational capacity, because we've got some badly needed positions that are being added back to deliver all the programs and services that you have approved as a council. So just thank you to everybody. This was a ton of work to get us here. This is a good budget. So thank you very much to everybody for your contributions, and thank you, council, for your support.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much. With that, we'll move down to 8.3, digital sign in Fort Assiniboine. Morning, Mrs. Anderson.
Good morning, Region Council. With the current leave of communications, we've been directed to bring forward this topic of the digital sign in Fort Assiniboine. We received a letter, council and administration received a letter from the Fort Assiniboine Legion, number 210, requesting information on the status of the digital sign. So just to fast forward through that, this sign was built in, I believe in 2014, it was put together. There was multiple agencies that came together. Ourselves, Woodlands County, contributed $25,000 in total. And we had entered into an agreement with Pembina School Division to have the digital sign on the property there. And the Fort Assiniboine librarian would look after putting posts up, and anybody in the community could do that. And part of our responsibility with that was to maintain the digital sign. In 2022, it came to our attention that the digital sign was working intermittently, and we sent out an electrician. He looked at it, he thought he fixed it, worked for a little bit, then it didn't, and he went back out and finally said it's just not repairable. There were some issues with the communication between the postings and the sign. And so we started looking at different options, how we can move forward with this, as opposed to replacing the sign would be extremely costly depending on what kind of digital sign it needed to be replaced with. They've really changed over the years, so we approached and talked to the Fort Assiniboine Ag Society, and they had a repurposed kiosk that they were thinking that this could maybe work, and so potentially with some partnership, with some funding from us, they could get that kiosk back and working, and community, there could be posters there. So that was what we were thinking. The Fort Assiniboine Ag Society had approached their board, and right now it's just, I think it's still up for discussion. We haven't moved forward with anything with that yet. As I mentioned, we looked to the costs of replacement, and other municipalities let us know that some of them, depending on the size, it can go from 63, 65,000 all the way up, depending on how big we wanted to do. So that is something that we just noted that was quite a bit to replace. So our agreement is for maintenance, as I mentioned, not replacement. Those are two different costs. And so we are at right now at this kind of juncture as to where we would move forward with that. So I leave that with you for any questions you might have. I can answer the best that I can, and we can move forward, hopefully.
Question, reading through the RFD, it says that there is a sign in Blue Ridge, but
Yes.
just for clarification, the funding for that was raised by the Blue Ridge community.
Yes, that is their sign.
Do we have any other digital signs at any of our other communities or halls that the municipality has paid for to put in? Or all the other, say signage or stuff like that, either through, say, Insalmo or Westford Center, anything on those lines? Would that be through those groups, through grant funding and, I guess, fundraising to the public? Or did, is that something that we would typically give them money just to put a sign up at the Insalmo Hall or Westford?
Through the reef. So typically what happens, the community groups at their halls some of them have different signage for events that are happening in their area. We haven't given any funding to any other organization other than when we contributed to the digital sign in Fort Assiniboine for community signage. Now this is something that we could definitely look at if this is like what we'd like to do in each of our communities. However, what we did mention when we were talking with our communications department is we give $15,000 to the Woodlands Express, and we utilize that as a large communication in that area to all of Woodlands County. So that tends to be that. However, with our communications plan that is being worked on, that is something that I believe the consultant was working on with our communications team, is how would that communication, what would that look like? What does our community need? What does our community want? As mentioned in the RFD, we hear different things in Fort Assiniboine. Some really love the digital sign and others do not. They feel it's a distraction. And so that is something that is this something the community wants as a whole? Or is it something that we need? Is it definitely a way that the municipality would like to communicate? And ownage of the sign, there's a lot of different pillars to this topic.
Yeah, before I get to Councillor Williams, see your hand up there, just one follow-up question. The $10,000 amount that we have on here, if we approve this, does that, it says engage with the community up there, does that allow them the ability to, I guess, within that budget, or if they want to use that and look elsewhere, fundraising or something on top, but the ability to, I guess, choose what they feel is best for their community? Or I just say as long as it's within the budget, or if they wanted to fundraise above and beyond, do they have the ability, once they're engaged, to at least try to see within the realms of what we have or what we're offering to pick something they've been suitable?
Through the Reeve, I believe what we could do is work with whatever group wants to do this. We would definitely work with them. We don't need definitely a decision right now what it would look like, because those parameters we don't know what that's going to look like. We do know that there was an existing kiosk. We know that there is a group that is willing to say we will, with some little bit of funding, we can get this kiosk back and running, and we can get something working within the community. We can definitely have some kind of parameters if we'd like. This was just a discussion because we'd already started this in the process, and then this issue grew. So you don't have to make any decision today about what the group does, what they do with it, and keep it closed within that. I think definitely we can approach a group and see what that would look like and what the community needs, definitely.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thanks. I was just going to talk a little bit about this. I get a lot of community calls about signs and an overwhelming amount of support for this sign. The only negative that I ever heard about this sign or have heard about it is that people wish there was a dimmer on it sometimes at night, just because it was such old technology. It didn't have that. There's a couple points I wanted to make, but in our agreement with this school under 6.1, even if that sign isn't on, we're still responsible for all the maintenance of it. So if anything starts happening, that's the deal that Woodlands County entered into, and it says all repair, maintenance, everything. So we've actually committed to keeping that sign going. Obviously, it's maybe past its point, but and then the other point, I looked at the numbers in this RFD, and the replacement cost of this sign seemed so high to me. Like, technology is getting better and cheaper, not more expensive, I see. So I made a couple of calls. I forwarded the stuff on to our CAO or interim CAO, and replacement cost for a sign like this, they're saying is $23,000 to, well, you can go up as high as you want, but something similar is $23,000 to $40,000, not starting at $60,000. With all the infrastructure that's already there, the cost just to replace the sign isn't that high. I couldn't get anybody to tell me a price that high unless we want something extremely fancy or to rebuild all the infrastructure. So I'm struggling with this RFD. I get a lot of community pressure about this, and people do want it. So I chime back in, but I'd like to see where the conversation goes.
I do agree that we had an agreement in here. It was a formal agreement for maintenance on the sign, but we are past the point of maintenance. It's at replacement at this point. We have nothing in the agreement that says if we get to the point of replacement that it needs to be replaced. And having that there and doing offering up $10,000 for them to, if it's $23,000 that you found for a sign, $10,000 from municipality, there are grants that are equal matching. They could utilize something along those lines on a capital end to help out and put it on the community or fundraising. This is still more than we offer any of the other areas within our municipality, and what we're doing, I feel it needs to be reflective and fair across the board. So we wouldn't, like I said, through past practices or policies, we wouldn't do this or haven't done this at any of our other halls. I just feel that what we should be doing should match the precedent that we have at the other facilities, and offering this as kind of a, it helps with communication, kind of part of our pillars that we're working on up in the area, part of our needs assessment on it. It's good faith because we can't repair the sign that's up there, and it still helps out the community. So I would be in support of what's here. Mr.
Very
Benedetto.
good. Well, first I'd like to thank Heather, with the support of Joan. Due to an absence, they've dug into this and put this information together. But want to be clear around the intention today is that today this doesn't have to be completely resolved in terms of what exact sign it would be. The purpose of this recommendation is to engage with the community, because you always find a better solution when you engage with community groups, and so it is to initiate that process to engage with the community and provide some seed money. So through that engagement, they can look at some options, or whether they want a fundraiser or some other things. So, and then the second motion is that, we clarify to the public that that sign is beyond maintenance and repair. It's into replacement or do something different. So I think the motions today allow to set us up to move forward in a collaborative manner, and we can create clarity to the public relative to the status of that current sign, that it is beyond being repaired, etc. So again, the decision doesn't have to be made today, but these are steps to move the process forward in collaboration with the community is the intention of the motions.
Councillor Williams?
Yeah, I was just going to add motion one to re-engage with the Ag Society in Fort Assiniboine about a community bulletin board. I don't really support that. I've made a bunch of calls here since this came out, and nobody wants that I've talked to. I'm not saying nobody in general, but I didn't get any support on a community bulletin, so I'm not sure how we could reword that to maybe start the conversations or have a information gathering session in Fort Assiniboine and see what the support is, or how it's best to proceed. But a community bulletin board I don't really support at this time.
Any other discussion?
Well, I could, if this would be helpful. Again, it's a dialogue, and if you're more comfortable replacing the words community bulletin board with to evaluate options in place of that and provide the seed funding up to $10,000, we think that can work. And fair enough point that this then is not necessarily pointing to any specific direction in terms of what the solution may look like, but it does put a process in place. This issue's been kicking around for a while, so it starts the process to reach a resolution regarding this issue.
With that, I'll take a shot at this, rewording this. Motion one, that council direct administration to re-engage the Fort Assiniboine and District Ag Society to evaluate sign options and provide funding to a maximum amount of $10,000. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Williams?
Sorry, and I don't mean to be so sticky on this, but I don't understand, I guess, completely why we're putting Fort Assiniboine Ag Society into this. I don't even believe that they were a part of the original deal. I would rather engage with the community and see what they have to say and get some information on this, versus like we're putting it on one community group that only has X amount of members, and it's not really advertised or questions asked or answered or anything like that. So I'm a little bit confused of where the Ag Society got put into this. The Legion was the biggest driver behind this originally. Rather than put a number on this, or rather than do anything, I'd like to see if we could just gather information from the community and see where the support is, because we're getting conflicting information because I can't find a person that doesn't like the sign, and we're getting information from administration that there was really mixed reviews on it. So I don't know, there's a disconnect somewhere. I'd like to get maybe a little more information and see where the support is before we start throwing like a $10,000. We just pulled that number, right? So I think we should get some more information before we put this on.
That too, so that's good. It wasn't, oh, do we have code information? So.
Yeah, somebody in the background there talking.
Councillor Colkin has joined.
Oh, Councilor.
Sorry, I hear somebody talking there. I thought it was maybe in the council chamber, but yeah, I wouldn't want to put this. It seems like we're making a decision then, and we're giving or providing funds to Fort Assiniboine Ag Society to come up with an idea for the community. Where I'd like the community to have some input on it.
To that, if I would like to make an adjustment to my motion, if I can, to reword it to say that council direct administration to re-engage the community of Fort Assiniboine to look at sign options and provide funding to a maximum amount of $10,000. Any discussion on the revised motion? See, Councillor Kulkin, you got your hand up speaking to the motion?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I just I had a couple of long conversations with a few of the residents, and I would lean towards the suggestion that Councillor Williams is making. I think that it serves a purpose for the community to initiate this, because the past is the past. That whole other side, that sign issue, in my view, is over with, because we can't revitalize it. There's no need to go back there. And I think that if I look at what the Community League did in Blue Ridge, where they took the initiative and they built that out, I think that a committee should decide on what that process should look like. And I don't really feel at this point in time we should assign any dollars to it, because this is going to be an extended process. And I think that it serves a purpose for the community to develop a strategy to fund that in the first place, because it is specific for that community. And so I think if they come at a later date and want some support there, that would serve the purpose. So that's just speaking to the motion, and I think that if we can get a plan in place and we can get this thing going that way from a committee level, and then make sure that the responsibility to manage that and continue to manage that comes off the shoulders of the municipality and goes onto the shoulders of whatever that community group is. Thanks.
Councillor Wilhelm, your hand was up, and then Councillor Prestige.
I was just going to follow along the line of thought of not putting a specific dollar value on it at the moment. I do think we should engage, and then engage the community groups to come up with a solution, and then not limit that dollar value, because maybe there might be a really excellent solution that we want to go higher than 10,000 or something.
Well, my only issue with leaving that open is if they come back and they say, we want a digital board, this is what we want, and it's $20, $30, $40, $100,000, you know, if we leave it open to keep coming back to this communication over and over and over, we're not going to be moving ahead from this issue. We need to kind of, in my opinion, put a nail in the coffin, end it, say this is what we're willing to offer you. It's still more than we're offering the other communities. If you need this as seed money to go towards grant funding or anything else for fundraising in your end, utilize it and do it. But this is our hard line. This is where we are. We can engage with the community. We can help them find options, but this is our portion that we're willing to commit to. That's where I am. Councillor Wilhelm?
I don't disagree with that, just other than the fact that we've now opened it up to multiple community groups. So who are we earmarking this $10,000 to? You know what I mean? When we're now going to engage multiple community groups within the in that area, you're earmarking dollars to, and then not like who are we earmarking that money to? So why not just leave it? I mean, yes, I can understand. I think now that it's out in public, people understand kind of what the limits of what we're willing to fund it towards. But the next motion directly says we're going to engage the community and say, listen, this sign's not going to be repaired. We need to find another solution, and Woodlands County will work with you on that. So, yeah, I don't know why we need to put 10,000, because maybe a really awesome solution comes forward in the future, and we're like, 20 or more than $10,000 makes sense. So, I mean, we can put 10,000 in, but does it really mean anything until a project comes forward to us in the future? Why even earmark any money at the moment?
Councillor Coogan?
Yeah, you know, I think that one of the things that we have to recognize as well is that because that is a main corridor there for a lot of the tourism that happens on the east end here, I think that you know, we could possibly say that we would be open for a funding up to that value. But I think that the community committee needs to engage the business community. They need to talk to the economic development and development to see what kind of appetite is out there for any of the tourism operators to be involved in and make that sign not just necessarily be dedicated to what happens in the community, but also be a benefit to the overall exposure that we have as a county. And until that's determined, I don't think I would be in favor of really assigning a dollar value to that, because if you have a good business case, then I think Woodlands County Council can commit to being involved, you know, as to what they see their benefit is. Right now, I think what we do is we say, we can really say at this point in time, we could dedicate that, but you got to show us a business case that actually gives the rest of the municipality a value.
Heather, I think she got a hand up there. Bruce, did you have a question too? Okay, I'll go to Bruce quick. Councillor Prestige.
Through the chair, I wonder, instead of saying provide funding to maximum amount of $10,000, just an idea that they could apply for a grant to help fund something. And then we are in control of how much we put on there. Just an idea.
Heather?
I just, through the chair to all of council, I just wanted to mention two things. One, this would be unbudgeted in 2025. There's no budget money, the one you just approved. So any amount you put in there now is unbudgeted, so it would have to be included. So just a note. And also the installation of a sign, just purchasing the sign is one thing. Getting it here is another. There's delivery, there's mob fees, there's installation. So we would have to consider that and these other options. I don't think we're there yet, but just remember, it's not just purchasing a one-sided sign that's this big. Also, I did note in the RFD that we did not get, to our understanding, permission from Alberta Transportation to put that sign there. It is in, normally, typically, a signage that is that close off a highway has to have permission, and there is a lengthy process for that. So if we were to be a part of, we would need as responsibility of the municipality to follow those guidelines and have certain permits, but we could definitely work with whatever's gonna happen. I just wanted to make note that it's a very complicated, many layered issue, and it's something that I just wanted you to be aware of as you go forward.
Councillor Dean?
Through the chair to council and administration, what I'm hearing is there's a lot of consultation required and investigation required before a proposal is likely to come forward. And I think having a finite amount of funding, I understand the rationale behind there, but I also think that, you know, if you take into account what Councillor Colkin mentioned about economic development and other layers that could contribute to the conversation with whatever comes forward, I think we're not at the point where I would be willing to commit any funds. I think we need to have consultation with the community and see what comes out of it, and then have a conversation about funds.
Just given it is my motion there, I just want to speak to that. I still feel that we need to set a dollar amount for a maximum that we're willing to contribute up to. And it just, if they come back and say it's 100,000 they want and that's not what they're moving off of, and we've left it open for that, we're still having that conversation that they want this sign, they want X number of money for a sign that is beyond what we are willing to put into and the funding that is available. I just feel that we need to put, and I agree that there still needs to be conversation around the type of sign, who's gonna maintain it, how it's gonna come, where they want it, what it's gonna look like. We need that engagement with the community because that's their community, they're gonna know what's best for it. But I still feel, and yes, I understand this is unbudgeted, whatever, it wasn't part of our planning process, but as trying to be cognizant of the feelings and the emotions around the sign that's up there and the history, I'm willing to put some money towards it, but again, it's more than we've done for any of our other communities or groups when it comes to signage. Everybody else has fundraised on their own. I would have no problem with not allotting any money to it, having a conversation with them, and letting the community look at grant opportunities and fundraising opportunities to do on their own. But I just feel that it would be best to try to, extend that olive branch and say, this is what we will give you to help out, and kind of move the conversation and let them handle it as a community. That's just kind of where I am. I'll take one more here, Councillor Kukin, and then I'm going to call the question.
Yeah, Dave, I really understand your concern there, and the conversations that I had in the last after you and I talked at the last get together there, I strongly suggested to the people that I talked to that they form a committee, and that I would sit on that committee as just a guide to what the municipality is. And I told them my thoughts were that unless there was a business case developed and the community didn't take ownership of this whole project, it really isn't something that's a priority. And I'm not really happy about taking $10,000 out of that's not budgeted, because this process is going to take a while. I think that what we could do is, and this may be an amendment to your motion, is that we would consider putting $10,000 in the next budget at a maximum to support this effort, but we'd like to see a good solid business case for it first.
Yeah, I'll accept that as a friendly amendment to provide a maximum of $10,000 in the 2026 budget. So with that, everybody hopefully understands. I don't have a lot of conversation, understands the motion.
Could you just please read the motion then? So that it's been a while.
The council direct administration to engage with the community of Fort Assiniboine to review sign options and provide a maximum funding amount of $10,000 to be budgeted in the 2026 budget.
Can I do a friendly amendment just to forward the $10,000 to the 2026 budget deliberations, because we don't want to 100% earmark it in the 2026 budget, right?
That accepted for the 2026 budget deliberations. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed?
Opposed.
Councillor Coogan?
Yeah, I'm in favor. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, and that motion is passed. Motion number 2, somebody else want to make the motion? Not seeing any. I'll make a motion then that council direct administration to release a statement to the public on the status of the digital sign and the inability to be repaired. Any discussion on that motion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
And that is passed. It's been about an hour and a half here. Do we want to start in the new business and then reports, or do we want to just take a quick break? Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break. We'll be back here at 11 o'clock. Okay, we're back. We did have a couple people drop off online there. We're going to continue with 9.1, the municipal elections, returning and substitute officers appointments.
Mr. Reeve and members of council, as you know from the passage of the bylaw earlier in the meeting, we're moving forward with our preparation for the conducting of the 2025 municipal elections. And so this is addressing the appointment of individuals to serve in these capacities. So the first recommendation is dealing with the appointment of the returning officer, and of course we always appoint someone to stand in if somebody is absent, so it's also an appointment for a substitute returning officer in the event there's a vacancy. So we'd appreciate your support of these two motions to put these positions in place, so we are prepared to accept early nominations if somebody chooses to file them.
Thank you. Any questions from administration, or sorry, from administration from council? Let's see, Councillor Dean.
I'd move that council appoint Corinne Scott, Legislative and Communications Coordinator, as a returning officer for the 2025 municipal election.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Just checking, is Councillor Cookland still online?
Yes, he is.
Okay, going to motion 2, Councillor Prestige.
Make a motion that council appoint Don Fortin, Manager of Agricultural Services, as substitute returning officer.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that one is carried. Down here. Wait, Mr. Bryant?
Yes.
Wait, if you're ready, instead of keeping you waiting while we go through our reports, we can move you up. Just move to our other delegation. Just be cognizant of your time, and instead of having you sit here and listen to us speak, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'd like to thank council for the opportunity to address council on the issue I have with our road.
Before we
Chris
go on,
Bryant.
we'll just run around the table here. We'll do a quick round so you know who we got at the table here as well. You want to start there, Joan?
Joan Slewig, Director of Community Services.
Long time.
Yep.
Alan Dean, councillor for Whitecourt Central.
Jeremy Wilhelm, Whitecourt East.
Dave Cush, Councillor for Anselmo and the Reeve.
Hi, Chris, John.
Bruce Preston, Councillor LaRouche.
And we have Councillor Kulkin joining us from Goose Lake Timian. Whenever you're free, sir.
So I'm Chris Bryant. I own a property out on Township Road 590 that's in southwest Woodlands County, just off of Highway 32. We live 1 kilometer on Township Road 590. Over the years, 16 years that we've lived there, the first many years, the county was doing subsurface road stabilization with calcium because there was such a bad washboard from Highway 32 to the top of the hill where we live. And then about maybe 8 or so years ago, they stopped putting it on the road for the subsurface stabilization. And the road got really bad, a lot of washboard. But we, at that point, we put calcium down in front of our house for dust control. Because from the time we built there to now, there's been 3 times the amount, triple the amount of properties on the short 590 and the range road that heads towards the Grove Creek Road. There's an additional 40 country residential properties, plus a busy private campground at the end of 590. So we do have a lot of traffic and we do have a lot of dust. So we've been putting calcium down in front of our place since the county stopped. But back not that many years ago, maybe 5 or so years ago, the county started to put calcium down on the road for subsurface stabilization. And each year I would put my calcium down in front of our place, which is on the top half of the road, top half of the hill, going up. So this last, so I've been doing it every year, and the county does below our place and onwards to Highway 32. So this last April, I contacted Andre and asked him, are you guys doing road stabilization again this year on Township Road 590? He says, no, we're not doing it this year. So I said, okay, I'll go ahead and put 200 meters of dust control or calcium down in front of our house. So they put the calcium down in front of our place and the rest of the hill. So that was in June, middle of June. So I contacted the new infrastructure manager and asked him, like, I was told you weren't doing the bottom half of the hill. That's why I did the top half of the hill, in front of my house, the calcium. He says, well, he checked it out, and because he's new, and they only budgeted for halfway up the hill. Ironically, right at my property line, and ironically, right where I start my calcium. So I said, this seems to be a little bit unfair that I'm paying for half the hill for, of course, I'm doing dust control, but also it works for their subsurface stabilization. So I said, I was told you guys weren't doing the hill this year. And so he says, well, it wasn't in the budget. So I took it to the interim CAO, and he checked it out, and of course he come back and said, well, it wasn't budgeted. It was only budgeted for halfway up the hill. Of course, the washboard goes all the way up the hill. Ironically, right at my property line where I start my dust control calcium. So I took it to my counselor, elected counselor, and we kind of spun his tires on it for 3 months, and then finally I asked him, like, please give me an answer on it. And he said, I think that this is his email here to me. Since calcium is used with both causes for dust control and stabilization, it's easy to see where one might find discrepancies. I think it's with council having these discussions, we will have a better ability to address your concerns. I've been working on this. Well, he hasn't been working on it. He hasn't contacted me again since this letter 2 months ago. I don't know if it's been brought up in council about the stabilization, about the inequity of me paying for half of the hill for road stabilization when the county should be paying for the whole hill. So that's my issue. There seems to be, this isn't the first time, this is probably the 10th time that I've had the same issue with the county, with the county, and John Burrows brought it up at our meeting we had in July about the county culture and how they deal with issues and opposition. I've had other issues as well, and it seems like it's an ongoing thing. Here's an inequity where the county has done half the hill and expected me to pay for the second half of the hill because I want dust control. And then they use the excuse, the reason we only budget for half of the hill. Well, how do you budget for half the hill for stabilization? If you're going to be doing stabilization, you do the full hill. But it's because I do the other half of the hill, and I'm getting tired of doing stabilization for the county for the second half of the hill. So I asked for a refund. So I'm asking the council to consider the inequity of this. You can say, well, the decision was made to only budget for half the hill. And ironically, that doesn't seem to be a fair decision. That wouldn't be any decision any maintenance department of any municipality would do, saying, we're gonna do stabilization because it's washboard, but we're only gonna go up to your property line. Or the county council can say, you know what, this doesn't seem right. We're gonna stabilize the road. We're gonna stabilize the whole road and not just up to your property line. And do a refund and see the inequity in this. And that's what I'm asking for, is the council to break the cycle of how they deal with taxpayers. Because the county's not always right. Nobody's always right. And up until now, I've had nothing but opposition from the county on my subdivision. Last year, I had one of your employees come into our yard and ask if they can have access to our yard because they want to work on their slope, their road slope. And my wife said, well, Chris is over in our subdivision, which is on the same quarter we're on his quad, he's doing some work over. This county employee said, well, he's going to get a ticket because there's a fire ban on right now for ATVs in the rural, or not in the rural district, but in the forest protection area. So I come home, my wife told me this, and so in comes, later on that afternoon, in comes the county bylaw officer. And he says, you were on your quad out in the forest area. I says, no, it wasn't. This is all private property here. So what happened was this, this county employee who come and asked to have access to our property so they can work on their slope, also sent the county bylaw officer to give me a ticket that I'm operating my ATV on our own property, not in a forest protection area. The list goes on and on, back year after year after year. The county's done the same crap. And I'm tired of dealing with the county when there's inequities. And we had a 100-meter road to get approved that we built in our subdivision, and we did the roll test. The roll test was excellent. In fact, even the foreman for the county said the roll test passed the first time, but the county employee says, no, got to tear it up and do it over again. We did it over again, but the second time I told the county, we're going to have an engineer here during the roll test, and we're going to have a nuclear test done at the same time. So we had a nuclear test done at the same time. And the county employee who did the roll test says, well, if it was up to me, I'd fail it again, but the infrastructure director said pass it, but add another year on. I said, well, you guys were supposed to add or mark the road where you found deficiencies, because that's exactly where we do a nuclear test. They never marked the road. In fact, there was no report done on any deficiencies on the road, but they withheld it for 3 years, my holdback, instead of 2 years. And I came to council and I said, you know, this isn't proper. I've asked for the county to mark the road. They didn't find any deficiencies. They have no report on any deficiencies, but you guys are holding it for an extra year because you can. So the list goes on and on, back and back and back. So all I'm asking this council to do is do the fair thing and see the inequity in the county not completing the hill for subsurface control with their calcium this last year. I've been paying for the second half of the hill for many years. I want them to finish, to complete the hill, and me not have to pay for half of the hill for them to get their whole stabilization done.
No, I can't speak for past practices. I know some of the issues that you had, some of those employees are no longer with the municipality. And I can vouch for Councillor Burrows that this isn't the first time we've been hearing about this. It has come up in discussions with other councillors and with administration. We are scheduled, I'm not sure at what point, but to bring both those policies around dust control and stabilization back to governance and priority to review them and actually have a more in-depth conversation on our policy, on how we apply, and to look at examples like these. So it is something that we have acknowledged and we are going to be having a look at. I don't know exactly which GMP we have that slated for yet. It'll be obviously in the new year and before springtime comes where it's going to be utilized and used. So it is going to be coming for a more wholesome discussion with council.
It's good to hear that they're looking into it. However, I feel that I need a refund. How does the county budget for half the hill for stabilization because there's washboard all the way up the hill?
Again, as a councillor at this point, we can only based off of what the policy is, and if there's inequities in the policy, we need to look at the policy. If there's a request on a refund, that would have to run through administration. We can't do that at this table here.
Yeah.
They would have to do that. I can't tell them to write you a refund.
Yeah, so I've done that. I went to the new infrastructure manager went to the interim CEO and said it was inequity, it was wrong, it was unfair. And they said, well, no, it's budgeted just for half the hill. So if they can't see the fairness in this, I've wasted my time coming here today again. And I would hope that the council would direct the administration to take a look at this and consider a refund.
Councillor Wilhelm, I seen your hand up. Councillor Dean.
I just, through the chair to administration, is Jeff online right now?
Yes.
Jeff is online. I think the intention of the delegation is to state the concerns and state their position. As the Reeve has indicated, there are some policies that do require some review. The difficulty with all these policies, of course, it's setting a precedent, and there can be other requests. So I'm not saying whether, I'm not stating a position relative to the request. But anything like that needs to be looked at in the context of the broader policy and how that would be applied to others. The intention of the delegation is to give Mr. Bryant the opportunity to express his views, and he's been very articulate about that. So I don't know if we want to go much further today. Jeff is online, but I don't think this is the place.
We've only got a couple minutes left. We have somebody else in the queue here also online. Councillor Dean and then Councillor Burrows.
Through administration, or through the chair to administration and council, there's kind of two things at play is what I see, that, we need to revisit our policies, but we also have a situation where on the surface, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to provide stabilization halfway up a hill. Like I'm sympathetic to that concern. Given the fact that we can't make a decision on a refund today, can we have that conversation during our policy review?
Yeah, I think that that's completely appropriate, because then you're looking at the policy and you're also looking at if there are broader implications or that would lend itself to other requests. Now, if you decide that those requests are reasonable, that can be accommodated in the policy and certainly looked at that time. But it's always problematic looking at anything in a piecemeal basis versus holistic. And quite frankly, there needs to be the time taken to review some of these policies and see whether or not they're reasonable or not. But that needs to be done in a holistic manner and look at how that could be applied across the county, because people do look at these as precedent setting.
One more here, John, and then Paul.
Yeah, I actually want to thank you, Chris, for coming today, because I think council needs to hear, the experience on it. And it's something that I have been raising when we talk about the difference between calcium being used for stabilization and for dust control. And back when we removed a lot of the county dust control, when we hit the economic crunch in 19, we removed a lot of that county dust control. So when you see the same product being applied for stabilization and dust control, that's why I wanted to, and I brought this up before and made the motion that it come before the governance and priorities meeting. And for your understanding, the governance and priorities is the entire council. It's not a subset of councilors, it's the whole council. And I think at that time, we'll get a chance to actually look at that as a policy running across the entire municipality. And as Councillor Dean said, we can look at that other option then. And the second part that we'd also talked about was the traffic control bylaw. And at the moment, the traffic control bylaw is, in my opinion, it's a little light, but council will be looking at that. That's another one that's before GNP. And having some conversations about that. So I feel that I did bring these to council. You may not be aware of all the conversations that I have, and I'd also been hoping that GNP would have met prior to this, but we've been dealing with a lot of issues right now at the council. So that's the process.
Being cognizant of time here, we do have another delegation waiting online. Any closing remarks you'd like to pass?
Yes, so I understand, I totally understand the austerity program that was put in place by the county in cutting dust control. And people would pay for their own dust control, and I'm okay with that. But when you do half of the hill for road stabilization and decide to rely on my calcium for 200 meters for the second half of stabilization, it's unfair. And the county administration still hasn't come forward with an explanation why they would only budget for half of the hill and not the second half of the hill where I always put calcium down. So I would still like to hear their rationale around how they come up with a budget to do only half of the hill for stabilization and washboard and not the second half.
Right. Well, thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. And like you said, this isn't the end of this conversation. We are waiting to have, I guess, a more in-depth kind of around policy and everything in regards to that. I'm sure after we have that conversation, either Councillor Burrows or administration will be reaching out to you again.
I look forward to hearing from the administration on a refund. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With that, can I get a motion to accept delegation for information? Councillor Burrows?
I'll make the motion to accept Mr. Bryant's delegation for information.
Thank you, Councillor. Call the question, all in favor? That's great. And we do have a delegation there for at 11 o'clock. It's a closed session for Mr. Roach. I do apologize, I missed that one. If I can get a motion to go into closed session under FOIP 16 for 12.1.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Burrows. So motion under FOIP 16, closed session 11:23. Call the question, all in favor? That is carried. Let us know when we're offline there. Okay, so we are back from closed session. Coming out of that for 12.1, we have two motions. Councillor Wilhelm.
I'll motion that council accepts the energy sector update presentations as information.
Thank you. That'll call the question, all in favor? That's carried. And motion two?
Motion that council works with partners to promote the upcoming public engagement sessions.
Perfect. Call the question on that one, all in favor? That is carried. Just back onto the agenda here. 11.1, councillor reports and questions. Councillor Prestige, I'll start with you.
Well, I had two meetings this week. The first one was so yesterday we had protective services. Pretty much the same presentation that we had for RCMP, with the addition that Mayor Pickard gave us two scenarios. One is radar with the province shutting down the photo radar in the town. They're gonna try and get some locations that they deem as safety issues to get the photo radar back in. So they're just waiting for that. And the other one is the intersection that's out here. They're getting the province to put lights up. So we're just waiting for the province to get that to. So I really think they're gonna put them in, it's just when. And Yeah, oh, the other one was, lunch with, West Fraser manager. That was a lot of good information on it. Things we could work on with them for our communities. So I think we should, be doing more of these lunches with other industry, just to get to know the people and see how we can work together with them to help our communities. And that's it.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Prestidge? No? Councillor Burrows?
Yeah. So I attended a webinar on the creation of the affordable housing grants that are available. They're not terribly well suited to rural applications, but I'll keep looking into them. The other thing that I'd like to highlight, that's about all I did with Woodlands. But the other thing that I'd like to highlight is RMA is going to be releasing a report on the mature asset strategy. And there is a large swath of what industry's terming mature assets. And they're actually looking at, these are oil and gas facilities, they're looking at reassessing those in such a way that it makes it more favorable for the oil and gas companies or more profitable. We're going to be having some information coming out about that from RMA, but I need council and everyone to be aware that this is coming. They are doing, in my opinion, they're looking at a tax policy problem and they're trying to address it through an assessment cure. And I don't think the two they're very different, and you shouldn't let one trip onto the other. So it is going to be a problem for municipalities, especially with the amount of unpaid oil and gas taxes that we're still seeing across the province. I don't know that this will specifically affect Woodlands. I think we're right on the edge of it, of the map, but within the study that we've seen so far, there actually is no description for what a mature oil and gas asset is. So that's the update I can kind of give, but just be aware that this is coming.
Any questions for Councillor Burrows? I'll go on line there, Councillor Coogan.
Yes, thanks, Dave. I guess my schedule's been a bit light. On the 13th, we had a meeting with our Regional Economic Development Growth, where we had a lot of discussion about the direction we're taking, and we're now in the process of changing our tourism website, social media, expanding that within our budget framework that we've been given by the way that the province funds us. So that was a really good, because now we have a solid direction there. And then I attended an engagement session with Bert and our regional group with Invest Alberta. Both we didn't get through it on the 16th, so we rebooked another session on the 17th. So I spent a few hours there discussing on how we can align ourselves with Invest Alberta, both as a municipality and as a region. So that was pretty much my load for the last little while. I've had a lot of discussion over the sign issue here, and I'm happy that that was brought to a conclusion now that we have a direction and how we can participate in it. And that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Coogan? Any? Councillor Wilhelm?
Okay, a couple things here to follow up on. We had our last Community Services Committee meeting in that We approved 10 post-secondary bursaries. It's the most we've approved since pre-COVID, so it's nice to see that we're getting a lot of applications into that. We've also approved an apprenticeship bursary as well. And YES applications, that's a youth enrichment subsidy, so that's the subsidies that we give to kids in our community for doing sports and other stuff for enriching their lives. So that was for the Cats football team. And then we had a delegation from the Whitecourt Horse Club. So what they're doing, they've come previously, they're applying to be the trail masters for the Sandhills area that's in between Whitecourt and Blue Ridge, down the old Blue Ridge Highway. So they want to take over and develop a set of horse trails in that area. So they would manage it and look for funding to build staging areas and all that kind of stuff. So they're somewhat on track towards that. I know there's some other community groups in that area that are concerned about that issue and are looking to work together with them to make sure everybody enjoys that area, because it's well used by ATVs and dirt biking and all that kind of stuff as well. And then we on our committee, we've got a youth member, Isabel, and she actually at this last meeting we have a new chair and vice chair. Dave Turcott is the chair now, and the vice chair is actually our youth member, Isabel. And she's 15 years old, and it was a big step for her. I'm not quite sure she quite realized what she was putting her name in for. So, but I think it's going to be a really effective way for her to learn how committees work properly and take a much more leadership role as a youth member in our community. So that was a good one for our community services group. And then I had 2 meetings, Laxin Foundation last week on Tuesday. We just passed our 2025 budget, and then set a date for our strategic planning. And in that strategic planning, we'll be developing 2 long-term plans, one for 5-year and one for 10 years, to expand senior housing in our community, both affordable and market level. So we're looking at creative ways of doing that, impact the requisition as little as possible, but we will see an impact in the future. And then I had Whitecourt Community Services meeting, and it was a very quick one. We just had kind of a get-together and a Christmas dinner. So other than that, that's all I've done.
One comment I have, and I don't know if it'll work for the Whitecourt horse group when you're talking to them around the trail development in the Sandhills. In Fort Assiniboine, the Sandhills in that area, they also have a trail system. Half of it's utilized for horses and hiking, and the other half is utilized for ATVs. Again, I don't know the specifics on the trail system here and how it works or how it's utilized, but maybe if they take a look at the model that's up there, it might help them in developing what they're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's actually 2 separate sections, though, right?
They have a division.
And I think they might need to do something like that, because it is just a hazard for both the user groups. So we need to find a way to help them work together to make an equitable solution for both of them.
Any questions for Councillor Willem? Councillor Dean?
Thank you. Just a couple of things of note. Like everybody else, I attended the budget meeting on December 5th, and was happy that that process came to a conclusion. December 10th, I was working with the Whitecourt Ag Society and interim CEO Rod Hawken on the funding from the town of Whitecourt to the Whitecourt District Ag Society. And happy to report that the Whitecourt District Ag Society will be receiving their back pay funds that had been overlooked. They had missed payment from the town from, I think, 20 and 21. So together with the current years, they're going to receive a check of a little over $80,000. And that's it.
Okay. Any questions for Councillor Dean? I guess for myself, we had the budget meetings at lunch with Louis Lumber there with Mr. Benedetto and Mr. Prestige. It's kind of seeing some of the needs that the industry is seeing in the area, and then trying to find ways to connect those needs to potential investors. It's kind of one of the biggest hurdles that we got out of the meeting there, but We've got some ideas, so administration might be able to work out or come back. Made two different meetings with the food banks, one in Whitecourt and one in Mayerthorpe, as a presentation from West Fraser, also given a check for donations. Whitecourt Food Bank, they work with, I guess, in kind of conjunction with Mayerthorpe. They were showing a lot of the donations, a lot of what they have, but it's still tough. They said they're, finding the uptake on individuals and use is a lot higher than it used to be, and not just from new members within the communities, because obviously there are an influx with new residents and new even community members from outside of the area moving into it, but long-standing individuals within the communities who have never utilized food banks before and are in a position where they need to. So it is very reflective on the times and where we are in our markets, and little kind of disheartening to see that that's where we've got to, but they're doing a great job. The donation from Blue Ridge Lumber was greatly received from both of them, and will definitely help with replenishing some of their supplies. Had Insamo Eggs AGM here last week. Brought in a couple new members, had a couple long-standing members decided to take a break back right now with just everything going on, and their schedules also just didn't have the time or the commitment for all of the events that we volunteer and we run out of there, but we're still willing to put their name forward and help out. They said if there's any maintenance concerns or other issues, they're still close by and willing to be there. So great individuals. Sad to see them off the board, but again, we have a couple individuals who have sat on the board before and filling the roles and are very inclined to want to help out. Whitecourt Library Board had a meeting with them last night. They introduced just some new members. Wasn't a whole lot on the docket. One of the things that came out of that board, and I had a discussion with Heather, they had from the youth advisory group from the town, and it just sounds like it's just a board made out of youth members. And they're kind of tasked to kind of sit around and come up with suggestions or RFDs to put forward towards town council to help kind of fill that gap between what council feels youth needs and what youth needs actually are. And some of the suggestions that they're apparently putting forward, they gave us a couple of examples, are fantastic. And I was talking to Heather about it. I guess it's something that's kind of come up at the community league meetings as well. And I'm waiting to see where we take it from or hear back on that. But it sounds like it's a great program that they're running out of the town for those residents. And lastly, I had a meeting with Metrics Group, just kind of their organizational audit on where we are before they get into their audits on our financials and where we are. Just general questions on who we have on council, if there's been any changes, if there's any issues of concern that we're seeing or anything that we should be flagging or looking for. And fairly basic. It was a good conversation. Went about 15-20 minutes. And other than that, regards to our other item here in camera, I've had a lot of conversations back and forth over the last week with Ken Glover, and we're happy to see where that goes when we get into camera. Other than that, any questions for myself? Not seeing any. If I can get a motion to accept council reports. Councilor Burrows?
So moved.
With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Oh, sorry, Peter, did I miss a question or are you just voting?
No, I just voted.
Okay, thank you. Move down to 11.2, December 2024 Community Services Report.
Thank you, Council. As you can see, fairly extensive list this month. All groups are relatively busy. I'll do a quick note on kind of touch on each department here. So protective services, we got confirmation, I guess, with respect to the Pierce Aerial Tower. The town on December 16th reviewed the letter that was forwarded to them, and it sounded fairly positive. So Sheldon and Lee Hardman will be working towards that, and Paul might have more to add to it. Health and safety, we met with the RCMP. Could be some future cost implications that we'll bring forward through future budgets. Just making Woodlands County a safer place for our employees. Planning and development, permit and applications are pretty much on par with what we've had in other years. What we're thinking this spring is doing a bit of a campaign, just encouraging ratepayers to make sure that they're obtaining their development permits. Our assessors are good at kind of identifying structures that they've come across that haven't necessarily had development permits, so we'll work on that. Also, we're looking towards the January and our next land use bylaw committee meeting. Been brought to my attention there's some conferences during January, so we'll try and work around that to make sure that council can attend that. Community services, thank you for passing the budget, because we look forward now to reestablishing or relaunching the recreation area and getting some initiatives going there. Economic development, as you can see, Bert's been busy attending various conferences, meetings. Busy guy. You don't see him too often, or I didn't see him much this month because he's been holed up in his office on the phone and or out doing all these meetings. He did receive his top 50 economic development award. He was down in Salt Lake City, so kudos to him. I'd also like to just say that the departments have also been winding down, and they have a well-deserved vacation coming up for Christmas, and thank you, council, for adding those couple extra days so that they can enjoy the Christmas vacation. I'd also like to reflect just a little bit on last year, in that I'd like to take a moment to thank our committees that council and our members at large sit on: Economic Development, the Municipal Planning Commission, the Community Services Board, and I guess even our volunteer firefighters, and just touching on protective services. You know, if it wasn't for the time and dedication that council and the members at large put in, you know, it would be all falling on administration's backs, and but it really adds making Woodlands County a better place when we've got all that extra input.
Councillor Demas, in you.
Yeah, through the chair to Joan, I just note in bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I guess, within the ECDEF report, that Woodlands will be a sponsor of the SiteLink conference in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm just wondering what that sponsorship looks like, what the cost is. I don't recall that ever coming through the committee.
Okay. I'll have to get back to
Okay.
to you on that, but I'll
Sure.
definitely forward it
Thank
to all
you.
of council.
Any other questions for Joe? Councillor Coogan?
Yeah, and no questions for Joan. I just like, I may not be able to I won't be able to make it to the MPC meeting tonight. I'll be on the Teams link. But, you know, we've had a lot of different engagement sessions and things happen this year. And I know sometimes us councillors may not be quite in the same direction as what administration thinks it should be, but I really would like to say thank you for putting up with us, and more so saying thank you for the work your team does in trying to move all of the things that we are interested in moving forward, and a Merry Christmas as well. Thanks, Joan.
Thank you.
I'd like to say it's a part of actually my report that I missed, but it's also on Bert's list here, down at the bottom. We had a tourism meeting with the Chamber of Commerce. Chamber of Commerce is possibly looking at developing a new initiative working with the town of Whitecourt, Woodlands County industry, kind of more like a regional thing to help try to promote and develop some of the kind of more, I guess, our tourism, whatever, for the region per se, is instead of, you know, a municipality or an area. So we did kind of sit around, had a quick meeting with them yesterday morning. It was more blue sky discussions kind of around how things might be able to play out and work. But they are in the process of seeing there's some grant funding and other things available that the chamber can kind of reach out to help develop some of that in the area. And they were just wondering, you know, where something along the lines of tourism might fit within our strategic plan, and we did identify it as one of our pillars, and we would be willing to have discussions with them around what it might look like or how things might go. So it was very introductory. There's no real direction or anything at this point, but hopefully we see something come back from them after they have more to bring back. Anything else for, I guess, Joan, before we move on? Not seeing any. If I can get a discussion or a motion for the community services report. Bruce?
I'll make a motion the council accept the December 2024 community service operational report as information.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Moves us down to 11.3, infrastructure service report.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of council. I'm here to provide 2024 December operating and capital update. On the capital side, item number 2, right-of-way acquisition, we were successfully acquiring 6 parcels of land to support our bridge file replacements. Item number 5, the tandem plow truck that arrived in October, but it was subsequently sent back because there was deficiencies. The truck finally came back with all the bells and whistles installed. It's putting use already. Item number 13, the upsized grader unit that was supposed to come in January 2025 arrived early. It arrived 2 days ago. It's sitting in our yard, in our shop. This is the upsized 160M. It's getting prepared for usage. Item number 19, erosion repair on Randall 110. We substantially completed that project. We have some seasonal work left to be carried forward into 2025, but the work is largely complete. Next page, item 29, Quebec Road. I was supposed to come back to council today, but I need some information that I don't have. So the update for council will be delayed after the new year into the next council meeting. Item 31, 32, I'm working with the consultant trying to get a tender submitted to us in the in the early January, so we can hopefully tender those 2 projects. These projects we received grant funding for, and one of the projects we're still waiting for DFO permits, but we're working closely with the federal government trying to secure permits. Item 33, 35, 36, and 37, I'm also working with the consultant trying to get a tender package by early January 2025, so that the project can be ready for tender early in the new year. That's on the capital side. On the operating side, on the airport side, in winter operations, the recent warm temperatures and lots of snowfalls in December does provide some challenges for our staff. Wastewater side, we attempted urgent repairs to bring the Fort water plant back in a running state, but it requires regular monitoring to make sure there's no other surprises. That's coming. Solid waste, the scale house replacement for the regional landfill that the tender should be ready in the early new year for tendering. I recently met with the town administration to talk about the engineering side of the 2 tender strategy, because the scale house fabrication, that's tender 1, and the physical installation is tender 2. So I recently had a meeting with the town to talk about the engineering side of that. At the recent regional landfill meeting, the governance structure was raised, and that may be a conversation coming to the authority in the new year for discussion. On the road side, we had a very generous November. However, we had a very busy December with warm temperatures and with almost a snowfall every week, sometimes twice a week. We sometimes have to bring staff who are off holidays back from their vacations to do work. So we had a very busy December. We have been working on the urgent culvert replacement list. Council recall that I brought 6. We did find some innovative solutions trying to reduce the cost. Council will see on the new capital plan, we reduced the number from 750,000 down to 700,000. We're also working with province for 1 out of the 6, we may get grant funding. So if we're successful getting grant funding, that's another $100,000 saving for the county that we're working towards. Rendell 102 washout, that needs to be pushed to next year. We ran out of runway in 2024. In terms of corporate level matters, my staff being very busy with budget development for 2025. We had a very busy year in 2024. We take this time also, as we're developing budget, we take the time to reflect on the lessons learned in 2024 while we plan for work for 2025, so we hope to do a better job in 2025. We're working with other departments to recover funding from the province from DRP 2023. We're also working with the grant consultant to apply for all kinds of grant opportunities that we came across. In the new year, in the February GMP meeting, we are working on, and we do plan to take to that GMP meeting on a few bylaws that council asked us to look into. That's my update. I'm open to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Any questions for Jeff? Not seeing any. If I get a motion to accept the infrastructure report, Councillor Dean.
So I'd move that council accepts the December 2024 infrastructure services report as information.
Thank you, Councillor. That'll call the question. All in favor? That one's carried. 11.4 service tracker monthly report.
Good evening, council. Before you is the service tracker report for November. Again, another not a whole lot for this report. With the late start to the winter, not a lot of snow plowing sanding requests as compared to previous years. But the ones we did get seem to have been, there was a quick response to it, and that was shown in the employee kudos that we received. That's the report.
Anything anyone wants to talk about? Councillor Wilhelm?
I just want to mention that Whitecourt East has one of the lowest requests it's ever had, so something good must be happening there. And with that, I'll make a motion that council accepts the November service tracker report as information.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. 11.5 CAO report, Mr. Benedetto.
Mr. Reven, members of council, and certainly as you're aware, the budget has been a major focus of the administration because of you going through and completing your due diligence as you are making adjustments. We had to go and adjust and get everything lined up so that we know we had everything correct. But the other real important part of that budget is, and I want to acknowledge we've got many individuals in our organization since the cuts that have been wearing multiple hats and taking on multiple tasks, etc. So it's very good that through the budget that you have provided some investments in organizational capacity so we can provide some relief in those areas. And of course, through the budget process, we had some very good discussions about some of your priorities and other priorities. So I think we've got a good plan to help move Woodlands forward in a very positive way. Joan had touched on this one and the work that that you did with council and further refined with Joan and Sheldon and the liaison with their counterparts at the town of Whitecourt. That list of calls was further refined, so it was very specific and clear relative to when that Pierce aerial unit would be deployed within the county. And as Joan has said, that was approved by Whitecourt Town Council Monday evening. So we should have all of that in place for January 1st, which is the start of the new year in terms of the ICF process. It's been touched on, the meeting with West Fraser and looking at some of those economic development opportunities where they have products that could lend themselves to some other further processing or some further advantages to other companies. And it was touched on here as well. We did compliment them as well for their community investments, and some of them were touched on with the food bank and the earlier comments. And very clearly, their company sees opportunities where a response to an incident at their facility could be aided by the Pierce Tower truck. So they'll be very pleased to find out that this has been approved and put in place. And at the previous council meeting, there was a request that we prepare some draft letters of support for our major STIP grant that we're really in bad need of in terms of upgrading of our airport. So with working with Reeve Cush, we've been able to provide some of those a draft letter of support for our STIP grant. So hopefully we'll get some more of those in to add some weight to move forward and hopefully end up with a successful STIP grant. So with that, I would answer, I've got some other things to report in camera for obvious reasons. With that, I'd answer any questions that the council has.
Any questions currently for the CAO? Not seeing any. If I can get a motion to move the CAO report. Councilor Bros.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to move the CAO's report as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. And it takes us down to the last part of our meeting here. If I can get a motion to go back into closed session under FOIP 17, 21, and 25. That's Preston.
I'll make a motion that we go into closed session for, which ones were they?
17, 21, 25.
17, 25, and 21.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? And we are back in closed session at 1:02.
Thank you.
Okay, we're back from closed session. Have a couple motions to finish up here. 12-2, Councillor Wilhelm.
I'll make a motion that council appoint Matthew Ferris as Chief Administrative Officer for Woodlands County effective January 27th, 2025, subject to the terms and conditions outlined in his employment agreement.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. 12.3, Councillor Dean.
I move that council accept the Alberta Wildfire Airport lease negotiations as info and direct admin to bring this item back to a future council meeting.
Thank you, Counselor. Call the question. All in favor? That one's carried. 12.4, personnel matter. Counselor Prestige.
I'll make a motion that council accept personnel matter as information.
Thank you, Counselor. Call the question. All in favor? That's carried. 12.5, Counselor Dean.
I move that council accept the revenue sharing litigation as information.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Counselor Wilhelm.
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you, Counselor. And with that, call the question. All in favor? We're adjourned at 1:55.